Japan's imposing a series of new social restrictions after a surge in cases of coronavirus. It's also urging its citizens not to travel to 73 countries and regions. That's a third of the world. It's expected to close its borders to people coming in from the US, from Canada, China, South Korea and most of Europe. Japan has so far been spared from a major outbreak, but the number of infections is approaching 2,000 now. 56 people have died. Let's talk to our correspondent in Beijing, Katrina Yu. And Katrina, apart from that incident with that cruise liner that was at Yokohama port for some time, we had thought that Japan had escaped the worst of this. And there is some suggestion that perhaps there was some government manipulation of information, if you like, whilst the whole issue of staging the Olympics was still on the agenda.
That's right, Martine. So it did look like a very positive picture in Japan, given its proximity to China, the epicenter of the outbreak. We had some very low numbers for a number of weeks, and Japan avoided putting its country into any strict lockdown. It avoided any severe social distancing measures for some time. Now, as you mentioned, cases in Japan are approaching 2,000, which still doesn't sound like very much compared to some other countries. But what is concerning is how fast that number has jumped. That's nearly doubled in recent weeks. And because of this, Japan is now planning for some intense measures, including some travel bans. The Japanese government is planning to introduce a travel ban on 73 countries. As you mentioned, 1/3 of the world, including the US, South Korea, most of Europe. What we've heard is that when this ban comes into place, any person who's been in any of those 73 countries in the past 2 weeks will not be permitted to enter Japan. The Japanese government is also urging its citizens not to travel to 50 countries, in particular around the world, developing economies. Now, as you mentioned, there's a bit of a scandal in Japan surrounding Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, because the timing of this spike in cases was just after the postponement of the Olympics was announced last week, leading many critics to say that Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his government was purposely downplaying the coronavirus numbers initially in order to quell fears about hosting the Olympics. And that was also one of the reasons he delayed putting any stricter measures in place. So at the moment, there's a lot of backlash from the Japanese government saying that these measures should have been put into place much sooner, especially now that Japan seems to be struggling to contain particular fast-growing clusters of coronavirus around the country.